let's talk about the next. What do you know? What your next couple of so he's in Florida's best pre-tribute band called Human Clay, and even though we're going to definitely touch base on that, we're going to talk about a whole bunch of other stuff because before we let it roll, we were talking, and it's all shit that I should have had rolling while we were going, and we'll get to the Human Clay dates and that kind of stuff too, but. Now what's fresh on my mind, and I have had gummies, so I'm going to talk.
All good.
You're going to interject, and
yeah.
Was we both grew up on Long Island, New York, in the '80s, and all throughout most of our lives, and in the '80s, growing up, it was fucking 100% all metal all the time in every town. From Montauk to the border of Queens, and then Queens was a whole other metal and punk scene, and then Brooklyn and the Bronx, and New York had a whole a thriving original scene that people don't really understand because we were all 16.
Yeah,
fucking.
It was we were kids, and
where did you go to high school?
I went to Pat Drug Medford.
Oh,
actually.
me too.
Yeah.
See, yeah, that's right. Because he knows my ex-wife.
Yeah.
Actually, that's how I know you and Kevin Rios.
Yeah. Me and Kevin, we've been friends since we were like 14.
We all worked Kevin worked in a record store.
Yeah.
all while they were working on their original band,
yeah.
and that's how I know Kevin, because I worked at a record store, and same company, but a different location, and that. Our whole scene just fucking 24/7 revolved around music, parties.
It did. Yeah, it was such an incredible time. I mean, we had great venues at that time. I mean, anywhere from Sundance to the Roxy to Spit to Sparks.
Yeah. That was my first date with Stacy was at Sundance.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What an amazing venue that was.
Yeah.
I mean, it was always fun.
It was Testament.
I'm sure me and Kevin were there.
Right?
So,
Probably.
We saw, how many bands did we see that were not even famous yet?
I saw Guns N' Roses.
So did I.
Before anyone knew who the fuck they were.
Yeah.
On the little Sundance stage.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, we there was Megadeth there. There was everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah,
and it became anybody.
Yeah, it was such a great time. I mean, everybody was in competition with each other. Because we were all trying to make it.
Yeah.
So at that time, everybody was, these are my fans, not your fans, just like we were talking before.
You get selfish. See, sometimes when you guys see the aggressive nature of a northern musician, it comes from that 80s, 90s, and 2000s battle where as from 16 to 21 we had to fight to survive, and we couldn't play most venues. So what we used to have to do is rent out rehearsal studios. We had Sanctum in Ronkonkoma, which had one of the biggest rooms where you could throw a party. So you'd rent Sanctum out. Testy Fungus, that was the band on Long Island. Each of our generations had the one band that somehow was everybody's favorite, and all the rest of us tried like hell to mimic whatever their thing was. And this was Anthrax's first album. Like that time frame. Twisted Sister, Stay Hungry. From Long Island, our only the guys we had to look up to were guys like Zebra, a band called Scarecrow. Who I don't think anyone knew outside of Long Island, but they were famous on Long Island.
And their music was fantastic. I mean, Bobby Marks was the drummer. I mean, unbelievable.
We had what was the fuck? Sweet something. I can't remember the name of this. Their local band that was around forever that Jack Starr was in originally.
Oh, yeah, I'm trying to remember that name, yeah.
But that band was together for 30 fucking years when I was a kid. And the bass player, Steve, ran the guitar room.
Rock shop.
At the
Steve, yeah.
Fucking, I loved that guy. Man.
He unfortunately passed away. It was a sad thing. He actually, when me and Kevin finally, left Heartless Rage back then, we knew it was time. It was time. It was, music changed. Steve Palmer actually was in Heartless Rage for a little bit.
Was he?
Yeah.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, he played for a little bit. They were trying to reinvent themselves at that time. It just wasn't working.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
Long Island was fucking tough, man. Who was your singer?
Joey Baker.
Joey Baker, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
For some reason, I get him and Jim Jamici confused, but I think it's just from looks-ish.
Yeah, they had that similar look.
Yeah.
Joey had that. He definitely had that standard, typical Bret Michaels, Vince Neil look. He tried to hone it really well.
Yeah.
So we found our niche with him. Actually, me, him, and the guitar player Matt Ryan are the ones that started that band. At 14 in his basement, we came up with this crazy idea. Took out a thesaurus, picked the first two words that we thought matched, and that's how we came up with Heartless Rage.
For fucking 20 years.
Yeah, and we kept going. We kept going. We recorded. We were kids. We wrote so many songs. A lot of them went in the shitter. But then you recycle. You take some parts of there, and you go, oh, we could do this here and make it work, and wound up working.
I have to admit, I liked. Clearly, anybody who is on my Facebook page knows that I like to push buttons, and I do it because I like to make people fucking think. Whether it's I don't even agree with half the shit that I do say, but I know that it pisses people off and it's going to make them think. And part of it is that in the way that we grew up, the only way that I can ever describe it is as musicians, we had to literally fight for any kind of recognition because everyone we knew was in a band.
Yeah.
Everyone was in a fucking band. And so, there were certain bands that were the great bands for the certain type of music. And then we got to this point, like with me, even my original band, Soulshade.
Yeah.
When it came to an end, I went right into the cover industry.
Yeah, so did I.
Because that ended, and it was, for me, it was 12 years of always, the original scene. You can never relax. You're always promoting, always handing out, always.
And we didn't have the internet then, so everything we were doing was hand.
We were cutting letters and numbers out of shit to paste flyers.
And then sticking them on people's windshields face down so when they got in the car.
I did a post on my marketing page the other day about that, about how the industry has changed so much so that none of the avenues in which we all used to market are available anymore.
No, they don't exist.
So where when we were younger, actually up until 2015 when I left New York, if I wanted to know where to go, I got the first issue of the month for Good Times magazine. Good
Times was our Bible.
And you went and you were like, oh shit, okay, fucking Heartless Rage is playing tonight, or this guy's playing. And now that was even still up to 2015, but then coming down here, there's no outlet. Nobody listens to the radio anymore. So people aren't getting the commercials in between where the radio stations used to set up their fucking trucks and giveaways and all that shit by making a deal with the venue.
You were like so excited when BAB would show up.
Yeah,
and RCM
because you knew your name was going to be repeated for the day on the radio.
Yeah, and it was like, you felt like a rock star then. That was like a big thing to you. You'd be like, listen, did you hear us on the radio? And it was great.
But they don't see, the venues don't have that outlet anymore because you can actually, I think I could buy a radio spot in prime time for like $50 now. It's gotten to the point where nobody listens unless you're sitting at work, and if you're at work, you're not paying attention anyway. So, you don't have that avenue. You don't have the print avenue because nobody reads a fucking paper. All you really have left is social media.
Yeah.
And the issue with social media is it's a short attention span.
Yeah.
So it's not. It is a 24/7 fucking job just to get people to pay attention to any band, whether they're good or whether they're not good, or it doesn't matter. And so now, what Florida is seeing, and I'm gonna, we were just talking about this,
Yeah.
and I want to expand on this part of it, is that what Florida is seeing is that all of us guys that grew up on Long Island that have that same original band for 20 years DNA in us.
Yeah, it's our mentality.
We're all coming down here now.
Yeah.
Now's the time. And then we get down here and we're like, wait a second, dude. What do you mean? What do you mean fucking 3 sets for 3 hours and
Yeah.
in fucking August in the heat and you're only going to pay me $600? No fucking way.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember the first show I did when I came down here like 10 years ago. You know, it was like a culture shock to
Yeah.
me. You know, I was like, what do you mean we play 3 sets? So you mean to tell me in between you just go hang out with the people? And it's definitely a change for me.
Right.
But I adapted right away. You know, it's
Yeah.
either you go along or you don't.
Now, the difference for you guys is the scene, by the time we all left New York, when we were playing in larger cover bands, every venue had a green room. And so
Yeah.
you played your 45-minute set of nonstop, like it was 40. There was a formula for all the bands that were in the cover A level that had booking agency. And you did 4 45-minute sets over the course of the night, but there were 20-minute breaks in between each set. And in between, there were 5,000 fucking people in those venues.
Yeah.
So you didn't go and hang out in between.
No.
Unless you were looking to get a little piece of something.
Right.
Most of us were married,
Yep.
and we didn't do those things.
Yeah.
So that I actually liked that because we were making they pay in cash $3,600 at the end of the fucking night.
Yep.
And you'd go home with this fucking mound, and you only had to work Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
You know, you could have. That's how I got into the habit when I got down here. Was that now? I was like, all right, I'm not going to work 5 days a week for $100 singing. I'm just not going to do it.
No, it's not worth it.
So I built a cover band based on all the same principles that we used in the cover band, and I'm in our bands, and I'm seeing all these bands now being built.
Yep.
With guys that I grew up with on Long Island or knew about on Long Island.
Right. What I noticed, and I've explained to some of our friends that came down here, you got to understand when you come down to Florida, you know, you got to put your ego aside that you had in New York. You have to adapt to what goes on down here because the musicians here are phenomenal. There's not any place that you can't go to that you're not going to see a great band.
Right.
You know, because the places are not going to book you if you're not really top notch.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of places are free to get in. You know, so
90% are free. Yeah.
So and they're relying on the people to come so that they can make their money, so that they could also pay us as the entertainment. You know, so it's definitely a very big difference that you have to be able to understand.
Yeah.
But it's great. You know, once you get that, and I adapted very quickly. I was like, okay, I'm not Jay from Heartless Ranger anymore. I'm just Jay Morrison, and, you know, I've got to figure out how this works. And I did. And I've had some great success since I've been down here with some good bands up in Jacksonville when I was there first.
Right.
You know, and then, you know, I came down to this part of the area where I live now down here, and I've met even better musicians.
Yeah.
And, you know,
that's the awesome thing is that the whole state is filled with both Floridians and transplants from all over the fucking country, actually all over the world.
Yeah.
You know, I got this great guy, he's an older dude from Finland. His name's Joe Vestich, and he plays down here. He comes down during the spring times and the end of the winter, and but from Finland, and he comes here and he gets himself working for the summer times that he's here, and he's famous in Finland.
Yeah.
You know, just because you can work every day of the week if you want to here.
Yeah.
So you just have to understand that the market's not. Where in New York, you had to fight to get bands to come and see you, so they came to see you. They didn't come to specifically for the venue.
Yeah, it didn't matter where you were playing. They were your fans that were coming to see you.
And that's why coming down here, we work differently. is because we come from a place where we already had to only be able to get the people that we could attract to come because the venues didn't have this giant fucking following. And then you come down here and you see it being very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that the only way that I can make more money is that there's more people in this bar.
Right.
More people drinking in this bar.
Yeah.
Well, if the bar's marketing strategy is not doing the job for you,
Mm-hmm.
you're left with no other option but to do it for yourself.
You have to. You have no choice these days.
That's the whole thing, is
Yeah.
that you come down here and you have to get to the position where you say to yourself, my hands are tied behind my back,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have any other fucking choice but to build my following.
It almost becomes another full-time job.
Totally another full-time job.
Above and beyond just being in the band itself. It's just a whole nother job. You know, just to get the right marketing out there, figure out where you want to market, figuring out, especially when you go to different areas, you know.
Who to market to.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's a lot of research. It's just, like I said, it's just a whole nother job in its own right. I spend hours a lot of the days just
that was
just
my
looking.
first 3 years here. I
Yeah.
refused to play music.
Mm-hmm.
All I did was live streams and videotape because I
Yeah.
wanted to see from the back scenes angle how this industry down here worked.
Yeah, you have to almost, you know. And I actually took a few years off, you know, and stopped playing a little bit just to. I started going and seeing a lot of bands, and I started moving.
Yeah.
I started coming down more towards the south, you know, and then into Orlando and everything. So I started to be able to see like all the different venues, how they run it, the bands that they're putting in there, the quality,
their set lists,
Yeah.
the whole 9 yards. I did the same thing.
Yeah. And
then you built a strategy.
Exactly.
It's the most aggravating thing for me because I don't know how to properly communicate with people enough to say, you've got to, number one, you are not in an atmosphere of which you can sit back and say, I'm just collecting $100 extra for the gig.
No.
Because you're going to be stuck that way forever, and what's going to end up happening is that the bands that will hustle
are going to do it.
They're going to do it,
Yeah.
and you're going to be without a fucking job. So
Mm-hmm.
I try to tell them all the time is that it's a business.
Yeah, it is.
It's a business. You may enjoy it. You may love to sing in the shower and think this. I'm going to go do this on Florida because I could do it anywhere.
Yeah.
You know that's the other issue with Florida.
You either get if you don't do it correctly, you're going to get pigeonholed.
Yes.
You know, and then you're going to be stuck, just like you said, in that $100 range, and you're not going to be able to get the gigs that you want to get and to put your product out there. And I found that you also have to find the right guys in your band that see your vision.
That's right.
And whether they each bring their own thing to the table and allow you to do what you do best and they do their own parts, that's what you need.
That's what you need.
You've got to have the people that are going to do the homework, that are going to jump in, you know, to the deep end with you, and, you know, understand where you're going and what your vision is.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And it doesn't always work the first time.
No.
And you end up going through and changing out members and until you're able to get to this point where holy shit. And see, as musicians, we can feel it.
Yes.
However, we don't notice the spectator noticing it until after. I'm sorry if the smoke.
No, you're good.
Until after like a month of gigs goes by, and then you start to see the change and the reaction, and you're like, oh wow, you know.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I've had 4 different guitar players in Shovelhed over the 6 years, and I can see the change in reaction from people with each different band member.
Yeah.
And who reacts to what, and who, you know, which guy is doing what, and then you get to a point where all of a sudden you're all the work
you're hitting on all cylinders.
All cylinders.
Yes.
And you don't have to make the phone calls anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and I try to instill that with some of these guys. Is I actually watch that with you guys because I'm gonna sit back and watch. I watch everything that goes on Facebook because
it's a learning experience.
It's a learning experience for one. It's the only way to know what's going on.
Yeah.
It is the only way.
Yep.
And as someone who looks at his band as a business, I have to be able to compensate, change, and work a structure that works
100%.
And if I see someone else doing it, I'm going to figure out how I can incorporate that into what I do.
Yeah, and you know, I also feel, you know, and unfortunately, you know, the guys in Human Clay with me are very humble, no egos.
Yeah.
You know, so we like being, you know.
You got to have some little bit of narcissism to
Of
walk
course.
around the stage with your
Of
fucking
course.
shirt off.
Of course, but when you get off that stage, you got to be.
How old is he?
He's in our age range.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
he's in good shape.
Yeah, he is. I mean,
God damn.
George is phenomenal. And one thing, he bought in.
Yeah.
You know, we notice every show, he picks up something else from Scott. He emulates him. You know, he understands what his job is. And it just blows us away, whether he's doing the speeches.
Right.
You know, because...
I can't do that. I
does.
can't do that in my tribute thing because I know I'm singing somebody else's words, but I have a hard time speaking somebody else's words.
Well, what I watch him do is I watch him take like the whole piece, and then he makes it.
It's a total performance,
and he makes it his own for what we're doing. But he uses a lot. He definitely steps into the Scott Stapp persona.
Yeah,
because. Let's be honest, Creed is known by Scott Stapp.
Right.
That was why I was afraid to do it originally. Because if you don't have that guy, you know, I mean...
It's worthless.
Yeah, I mean...
It's just somebody who looks like somebody else.
Yeah, you got to have the whole package in there. And we got very lucky with him, and, you know, and he's a great guy. I mean, my bass player, Randy, he's just a phenomenal guy. I've been fortunate to be able to play with both Kevin Rios and Randy. Yeah. You know, and they both, to me, are just like top-notch people.
Your guitar player I played with at Cackleberry when he was in a band called Diesel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's fucking phenomenal. Like, phenomenal, dude. His tones, I know he uses a fractal or something now.
But he's very humble.
Yeah.
And he just he learns everything.
Yeah.
And
I set Johnny up when he moved down here. Mm-hmm. Were you working with him?
Yes.
With Ronnie.
Yeah, we did it one night. It just didn't pan out.
No, I know. Ronnie was going through some shit at the time.
Yeah, it was me, Johnny, and Tony Cinciato.
When I moved out, yeah, that's right. Because that was, as soon as I knew that there was a fucking package of Long Island guys in one area, I'm like, oh shit, let's put them all in one band somehow.
Yeah. Well, we always wanted, even back in the New York days, we always wanted to play together. Tony and I... We ran in the later 2000s. We ran in the same tribute scene. I had Big Hair Days, and he was in Fallen Angel, and we did a lot of shows together. And actually, I had shows where Tony had to fill in for me. Oh, Greg, yeah, he's
here too.
Yeah.
I bump into him on occasion.
Yeah, we still talk to each other. He's another phenomenal guitar player.
Yeah,
you know, phenomenal guitar player. He's you know, you want somebody to play note for note. He's the guy. Yeah. He's got great stage presence, and he's got that. He's got the intuitiveness to know, you know, what works and what doesn't work.
He plays with Nova Rex.
Yep.
Who we have since the day we started. We have had a relationship with Kenny, and we were playing a gig for Harley, and Nova Rex was headlining it, and we were playing before them, and I walked up and there's Greg.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing here? You know, like, everywhere I go, somebody from our old scene is in somewhere in Florida.
Yeah.
And it shocks the shit out of me.
Even my booking agent, Maximum Bands, Rich Rubin was the lead singer for Wall Street.
Okay.
One of his booking agents, Frank, was in the original singer for Burning Star and was also in Last Temptation. So it's so funny. You start talking, and then again, it brings us back to the old days.
Yeah.
You know, and you see they have the same mentality that we had.
And it's all the same people still coming down here and saying, "Oh, I got to fight to get in here." Okay. Yeah. Challenge accepted.
Yeah.
And then everyone goes about building the units, just like, you know, like my years of my original band, Shovelhed, Soul Shake. For 10 fucking years, we practiced 3 nights a week.
Oh God, it was like
for like 6 hours a night. Of course, that's Comcast going to try to call in here. 6 hours a night.
Yeah.
3 nights a week, while we worked full-time fucking jobs, and gigged on the weekends.
Yeah, we would work in Hall Street. We would work these menial jobs.
Yeah.
our rehearsal was up 3 to 5 nights a week. You know, just like you said, 6 hours a night. You know, just trying to get it right, and then gig.
Yeah.
You know, that was our life. You know, that was all we knew. You know, that's exactly what we had to do. It was such a different time.
Yeah. And then coming down here, and nobody practices because
that drove me crazy.
Every venue's got the same band playing Long Train Running and Tom Petty and like, all right, this was 10 years ago. Yeah. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, it's like everywhere I go, it's the exact same song by the different band.
Yep. And I couldn't. That was a big thing to me when I first came down here. I was like, what do you mean you don't rehearse? Mm-hmm. I was like, that just drove me crazy.
Yeah.
That was
until you went and looked for a place to rehearse, and you realized
there's nowhere to go.
I got to drive 100 miles. Yeah. Like I was literally driving 100 miles to rehearse in a studio that was equipped, and I'm like, this is fucking crazy.
One of the bands I played in, we got down to I was playing on an electronic kit just to make sure that we knew we were in a little bedroom playing on an electronic kit, just so we could like make sure that we knew, you know, the endings or this, that, and the other thing, you know. So
I did the same thing as we used to do in Long Island. Is I drove from Melbourne to Stewart down A1A.
Yeah.
Looking for abandoned buildings with a sign on it that I knew had been sitting there for quite a while, and then I would call the real estate agent and I would say, hey, you know, I'm a 50-year-old guy, I'm not a kid, I have a band, it's a pro band, I would like to rent this place for X, and I couldn't get anybody to agree to do it.
No.
And I was just like, you know, in Long Island, man, everybody that had an empty space wanted to rent it out because the fucking rents were so exorbitant that an extra $300-400 a month from a band was...
Big Hair Days, we rented an office. We rented an office, and the guy took every room, it was in Ronkonkoma. He took every office and made it a place that you rented for the month.
Oh, smart.
Yeah, it was great. You know, we went in. You know, we did our thing. We
had Joe's Garage for a while until it burned down.
Yeah.
Because of us. Yeah. I probably should. We had like one of the big rooms, and my drummer at the time decided to go get a Sobe refrigerator for drinks. You know, the one with the glass door from the fucking gas station. And he was an electrician, and he wired it in himself without getting fucking permission. And one night, we get this phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning. And we're all rushing to Joe's Garage to salvage anything because the whole fucking place got lost.
Wow.
Yeah.
We
Lindenhurst.
We did it. We put our whole lighting rig in there and everything for Big Hair Days. And we would all of a sudden the guy would walk down and he would see under the door all this smoke coming out, and he'd be banging on the door going, "What are you guys doing there?" We'd open the door and he'd be like, "You guys are insane."
Yeah, and that was for rehearsal.
Yeah, that was just rehearsal.
That's why when everybody comes down here from the north, they want to perform.
Yeah.
Because every one of our rehearsals, like every rehearsal space that I ever had, the wall was lined with mirrors.
Yep.
So that you were watching your performance as you rehearsed. Yeah. And you played the songs and beat them to death until they sounded exactly like you wanted them to sound before you played them. And
do your transitions and this. What songs are you going to transition into? You know,
what can I medley? What can I, all of this stuff.
Yeah, you know, sometimes we took bands that, you know, like we did in Big Hair Days, like we did it a lot with Quiet Riot and Bon Jovi. You know, because like Bon Jovi, you're not going to play all their songs,
right?
So we would medley them. So, but you got to practice that.
You
got to know. You got to know.
Keys change. The fucking tempos
and
change.
Where does it work? Where can you go from this song into this song and it doesn't sound awkward?
I learned that in Green Machine when I joined Green Machine.
Yeah.
And because I had come straight from
great band,
original bands to I don't know what the hell's going on here to that band. And they were playing the Omnipop circuit, and all their sets were mashups. Like
I used to see you guys at Painters.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I loved Painters.
Yeah,
that place used to get crazy.
You couldn't even walk in that place.
No, but see, we also had. I was 36 at the time in that band. When you went to Painters, it was fucking 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
To 45-year-olds, and everybody was fucking horny. Everybody was like you. It was Like my 30s as a musician was holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it because it was nothing like when I was 21, which I thought would have been hog wild.
Right. It wasn't. Even my wife asked me, and I'm like, you know, when back then, when I was in the Heartless Region, the original band, it wasn't what you thought it was.
Right.
It really was, because it was we were kids, you know, and we were just trying to do the best we could. You know, we were hauling our own shit.
In our minds, we knew this was the thought process. At any given time, there could be a producer or a music or a record executive in the audience because we'd seen it 100 times.
Yeah.
And so that's how we went into that gig.
Yep, you had to, and you know, it wasn't. You didn't want to be shit faced. You didn't want to show that. You just didn't want to do that stuff because, just like you said, you never know. We played at Ronnie V's we opened for LA Woman, and that's where we met people that were giving us spec deals. Mm-hmm. You know, and if we would have been any other way, they would have walked out because already they're looking at us going, all right, you guys are kids first of all,
right?
You know, so you know they wanted to see how mature we were first. You know, so you come up there and you think you're the best thing in the world and you're shit faced, and they're gonna just walk away and say, I'm not interested.
Well, back then, so that area, that time frame, then they were signing every fucking band that looked like Poison or Motley Crue from anywhere in the country.
Yeah. And
our jobs were to get noticed.
Yeah.
So we all had 8x10s. Remember your press?
Yeah.
Your 8x10s?
I have one still on the wall.
So do I. Every band had a professional fucking press kit.
Yeah.
That had it was a manila envelope.
I was just gonna say that you put it in the manila.
It was you opened up the presentation, and the better bands spent more money, and their presentations were customed.
Yeah.
So their logo was a sticker or printed on the cover, and you opened it up, and as you opened it up, there was a business card in the sleeve, and all of their press clippings on the left hand side.
Yep.
On the right hand side was an 8x10. Because this is way before fucking the websites came into play. And a copy of your CD.
Yep.
Or cassette, because the cassette...
It was cheaper to do a cassette at that time, yeah.
You know, and now it's USB or a link and
now it's
an EPK. And actually what people don't realize is that nobody actually looks at the EPK. The reason why you're asked to send an EPK is to weed out the dummies who don't follow directions. From sending you a message, and or because if you send me something and it makes sense in the first two fucking words, I'm going to go to your Facebook page immediately. Yeah. I'm going to check your social status.
But you got to have knowledge of what you're doing. The EPK is important. Just like and I've even said to everybody, even your promo videos, you don't want to go too long. Either within the first 30 seconds, they're okay. I want to book the band, or they're not. So you know, don't go crazy, and you always got to know what you're presenting. You got to present the hits that even somebody's mom might know. Right. You know, that's where you want to go.
Well. So you guys got really lucky because Creed. I mean, you I actually saw you doing this just prior to Creed doing their coming back out and doing the thing. But the tickets are so fucking expensive to see Creed.
It is
that I could see that, you know, great, go to the Creed tribute because you sound like them, and.
Originally, like
the market's so fucking hard, right?
It is
just for anybody, because
like me. That's how me and Randy met each other. He came from Illinois, and I saw him on Facebook, and he was doing the same things I was doing. We were doing the '80s stuff, and we were in another band, and it just wasn't working. You know, we saw there was no momentum in it because there's just too many bands that do it very well that are already established,
right?
You know, so we had to get out of our comfort zone. And we took a little bit of a break. We thought we were going to take like the whole summer. We wound up only taking like 3-4 weeks. And we started talking. And
because you can't sit still.
No, you can't. And we started talking, and we were like, you know, what? Maybe we should step out of our comfort zone and go into like the 90s, 2000s. What could we do? So we were talking like Alter Bridge, maybe. My wife was sitting there, and she goes, "Why don't you do Creed? They're coming back out." And I looked at it, I said, it's a great idea. I said,
Smart wife.
unbelievable. I mean, she gives me the greatest ideas. I gotta say that, you know.
I got lucky too.
And she's the biggest supporter of everything I do. So I got very lucky in that. Hi, babe. I love you. But also, you know, so when she said that, and I said, I always wanted to do something like that. I said, but, you know, that's like a singer specific. I said, as a musician, yeah, you know Mark Tremonti, you know Scott Phillips, you know Brian Marshall, but most people just know Scott.
Correct.
You know,
the general population. So here's your problem with the entire 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Every band, the only person you know is the singer.
Exactly.
And a lot of the actually Creed actually is the exception to the rule.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Nickelback, and people fucking like to bust them, and I love them.
Yeah, I do too.
Both of their music is more uplifting.
And it's transcending.
Right. Than the rest of everything else that went on during that time period, because everything else was, the music was depressive.
Yeah, it was. Mm-hmm.
Everything else, every other fucking singer has committed suicide. Mm-hmm. And whether people want to believe it or not, it's on 50% of a crowd's mind. Mm-hmm. When you pull out a Nirvana song or an Alice in Chains tune, and where we might fucking love it, it's only a small percentage of people that want to hear a lot of it.
Yeah, because it winds up being that even catapulted them more in people's eyes because of the suicide.
Exactly.
You know, so it's like, you know, is it going for nostalgia or
freak of nature?
Yeah, you know, so you never know.
And whereas the Creed stuff, I knew it was eventually going to happen. As soon as staff sobered up completely, and had a few years of sobriety, I knew it would happen because they were so fucking huge. Yeah, that first 2 years or whatever. Yeah, like the whole music industry was like, holy shit. Yeah. Like, holy shit, where did these fucking guys come from? Yeah. And he was a chick magnet, and he still is. He's fucking 55 years old or whatever, and it looks great. Yeah,
so. I mean, you know, and, you know, him being sober, too, and, like, you know, again, we watch a lot of stuff because we're trying to do the best we can to tribute them. We want
Which, you brought that up before, and I'm sorry I interrupted you, but because there's so many guys putting tributes together, they're not doing this. Right. They're not studying, and they're saying, oh, I can sing Dokken, so they throw a Dokken tribute together, and I'm like, wait a second.
But there's more that goes to it, you know, and, you know, that was the whole thing that I said to the guys, I said, we have to have a product to sell. You know, the music is going to sell, yes, because of their back out, and, you know, it correlates to a lot of different genres. Right.
It's poppy enough. Yeah. It fits the proper age demographic, you know, where and it crosses the genre and boundaries of the of now. Yeah. Of now.
Absolutely.
Where, like, say, a Wasp tribute, where I would love a Wasp tribute.
Yeah, but
it's going to sell to a very small demographic of people.
I agree.
So it's not worth putting something like that together. Right. You know, throwing it, for me, being able to do the cover band thing with a guy who played with Wasp, it's a joy to throw that kind of shit in, but it's a one-off.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I'm not tributing it. I'm not doing a whole night. It's just a one-off experience.
And I think that's where a lot of people they have the misunderstanding. And I'm not saying they could be great musicians and everything, and they pull it off.
But here, you have to play to them.
Yeah, and you've got to, you want to, first of all, like I said, you want to be the best at it that you possibly can. You want to emulate them, and you want to pay tribute to them and give them the respect because you're playing their songs. Right. And that's how I looked at it. So when I went to the guys, I said, we have to have a product. So we have to step into that. I even changed how my drumming style is now. I'm trying to emulate Scott Phillips' drum kit because honestly, I had to. Based off of what he does. Sure. I had to actually change all my drumming style. Yeah. You know, I'm just a basic rock, you know, hard-hitting drummer, and I was like...
but you're going into this saying, I'm going to emulate the band entirely. Yes, I'm not just going to go perform their fucking songs.
That's why we decided we were going to play to a click. Yeah. You know, we there's so much going on in the songs. So if you're not going to present that, then to me you're just covering.
Exactly.
You're just covering.
Exactly.
That's
and I see the part of being able to be the guy, a guy on both ends of the business, where I've been booking bands, I market bands, and I'm in a band.
Mm-hmm.
I have a different relationship with a lot of venues.
Yeah.
That most band guys don't have, because I came down here and watched, and I understood that it's. I tell the band, "Oh, fucking rock it, dude! Look at that! Come here, you see it? Oh, it just went behind that cloud. Oh, I fucking love living here.
I live right by the Kennedy Space Center, so we see it every night.
Yeah, I sit here.
Yeah.
You hear that?
Yep.
That's how I know. I don't normally get to see them during the day like that.
It's pretty wild. It shakes my house, actually.
I think it's the greatest fucking part of living here.
Yeah, it is. It's such a different lifestyle.
See how excited I got?
We run outside into the far room. Well, we run right out and go. My wife's like, "Oh, there's a rocket going." We run right out there to look.
Oh, fucking! I wish I would have known that I could have had. I'm a huge sci-fi buff to begin with. Mm-hmm. So had I known that I could see this often, I would have. Well, you couldn't. This is all SpaceX now.
Yeah.
But it's my favorite thing of moving down.
It's so cool. It's such a different thing, and it's like, when I tell people, "Oh, I live right by," I'm like 5 miles from the Space Center, and they're like, "You see the rock?" I go, "I see them all the time."
I'll never forget. I was playing a gig, and I want to say Melbourne. No, it had to be Cocoa Beach. Mm-hmm. It was a huge complex, a hotel complex that the American Legion used to have their yearly big get together there, and they had a tiki bar in there, and I'm playing in this tiki bar, and in the middle of us, it's the first time I ever had this happen to me. Middle of playing the fucking song. The entire fucking bar just got up and walked down.
Yeah, they go because they. And
I was like, "What the fuck just happened?" Like, I was in key. I didn't miss. I was like, "This can't be me." Then I start to hear some rumbling, and the band stops, and we all go outside. And being in Cocoa, you're right there.
Yeah,
and I was like. Holy
it's just
shit.
Incredible. It's an incredible sight. If you ever get a chance to see it, definitely.
If you haven't, you got it.
Yeah, it's definitely it's amazing.
It's something West Coast misses.
Yeah, exactly.
Although the West Coast has that's the other part of. Oh, getting back to what I was saying was that we're going to go off course here. Was knowing that when you're down here, your job really is to sell alcohol. And when I talk about this, a lot of guys get bent out of shape because they want to say, "But I'm a musician and I want people to." But that's not.
Yeah.
Unless your name can sell a ticket.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And until you can get to the level that whatever band you're in's name can sell a ticket, you're selling alcohol.
100%, and that's what I think most people don't understand, and especially when you come from the north. That's why I've told everybody. I said, you're not that person anymore. You've got to understand what it is, especially in Florida. Just like you said, yes, you are selling alcohol.
Yep.
Because that's going to make the more people that come to the bar. That makes the owners or the bookers want to keep you coming back.
Yeah.
It's
the only way to get a raise.
You could be the greatest band, but if you're playing, you got 5 people in there or 20 people, they're just not gonna. Yeah. They're not gonna book you again.
And what ends up happening in that aspect that a lot of the folks don't realize is that. So you build a strong fan base on social media where you're interacting with your fan base on a constant, continuous basis where content is literally is king.
It is.
The more things you put up that grab somebody's attention, that have your name, your link, the venue's link, the fucking website, all the information that's necessary on it, that spreads to break the algorithm. And then you gotta boost the posts because you have to if you're playing Palm Bay. In order to get through that algorithm with all your posting and all of that other shit, you also
have to attack that area.
You have to. You have to attack it the same way you said to yourself back in the day that you were going to play
if you played Deer
You were
Park,
playing the Nutty Irishman.
Yeah, you went to that area.
And or you went to whatever gig was at Jones Beach, and you handed out fucking flyers for 6 fucking hours.
Yeah,
thousands of flyers.
That's what you did, you know, and that's why like we sent down posters to Suck Bang Blow.
Yeah,
obviously,
and they were like, "What? Nobody sends us shit."
You know the guys, you know Strike Twice, right?
Yeah.
So I'm still good friends with them. So the guitar player, me and him are really good friends. He went down early. He takes a picture from one of the shops there with our flyer on there.
Right.
He goes, "This is old school," and I just started laughing. I go, "Holy shit, they really did put it on."
Yeah, but you know what? It gets noticed.
Yeah.
And they don't do it. So I can go to 200 fucking venues.
Yeah.
Today.
Yep.
And there will be no information at the venue as to who's playing this weekend. Then I can go directly to their Facebook pages, and there's no information about who's playing on their Facebook page. Then I can go to their website, and their website has a calendar from 1992.
Yeah.
You know, and they're wondering why
nobody comes.
Yeah,
they leave it up to
you. Have the nicest, coolest fuck. I just found out, literally last week, that there was a 8,000 square foot venue run by a sound company in Stewart, right in Port St. Lucie, that I never knew about, and it's gone out of business at this point. And the guy posted something. He goes, "I ran one for 6 years." I go, "Are you shitting me?" I'm like, "Cause I know every goddamn venue from Jacksonville to the Keys. How did I never hear of this place?" And I was like, "Did you not advertise?" And he goes, "No, we spent thousands of dollars in advertising." And well, then somebody didn't know what they were doing. Is the only answer.
Yeah, they didn't target the right.
Because every band would have fought to get in there.
Absolutely. Yeah, and
if I'd have known that I can go into a ready built venue with a stage, with a lighting system, and all I got to do is the same shit that I do now to fill a venue, I'd be there tomorrow.
Absolutely, we all would.
In fact, it's gotten to the point now where I'm getting so frustrated with venues and fees. Now, when I say that if I go too long, you gotta let me know.
No. I got all the time in the world.
Is that when you do get to a point where you're providing a very large revenue for the venue, you still have to fight for your money. And I start to see this as a business strategy where I say, all right, I live in this little community in Florida, and I've got a clubhouse up here that has a 60-foot by 30-foot stage with lights.
Yeah.
It's like a theater, right? It holds 500 people. And I can not rent it, I can reserve it. And all I have to do is get $1 million insurance policy for the day, which is $64, and produce it and put it on myself. And I'm honestly thinking about starting to do this, because what I can do is do the old school fucking float keg party. $5 at the door, you get your red cup.
Yeah.
Actually, it's today. $5 was 1986.
Yeah.
So now you say, $10 at the door, I give you a red cup, and fucking, we got 35 kegs in there. Float the kegs, let's have a good fucking time and put on a concert.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when I look at I know the numbers. I'm a guy that has always gone to the bartender at the end of the night and said, "How'd you do tonight?"
Yeah.
And if the numbers were not good, I know. And then I say, okay, well, my next job here is to increase the numbers.
Exactly. Yep. And it's important to do that.
100 fucking %.
I mean, that's doing this. Definitely, one of the things, like I said, for me, Maximum's been amazing to me, and I have a great relationship with Rich because we connected from the Long Island days as well.
I called him and he told me he won't work with me because I don't look enough like the Black Crowes, and I'm like, we're not trying to, but I respect him.
Yeah, he's got his niche and it works. He does a great job, and he's also really helped me understand the business too. And and he's like, go get the ticket count, go talk to the bar, see how their night was.
Yeah.
Because it's important.
It's way important. Yeah. Now I understand him a little bit better, so just like everybody else, when you rise to a certain level or have a certain standard or speak your mind a certain way, you get a bad reputation.
Yeah, of course.
And he's had a bad reputation follow him around that's come back to me. And so now I look at that and I say, I'm taking this advice from people that I kind of respect, so maybe it's true, and I keep my distance. I don't go out of my way to cause an issue, but I keep my distance, and I'm starting slowly to understand him a lot more.
Like I said,
But this is what people do.
Yeah,
people
they do.
like us,
they do,
who come from a musical mecca and understand what makes the wheels spin, and then you come to a place here where you're constantly fighting uphill to get them to do things because you know how to make money.
Yeah.
Like, we know how to make money. We know that I know with Shovelhed and even with Eat Crow, I picked a demographic that fits from 45 to 65 years old.
Yeah.
45 to 65-year-old demographic have the kids have just moved out of the house and or are starting careers and are out of college and they're paying their own bills, hopefully. Or they have an OnlyFans and they're making a shitload of money. You know, so the parents are now at their midlife 50s. The guys are out looking to buy Corvettes and Harley Davidsons, and everybody's hopping on the back of the fucking bike at 9 a.m. And getting a Bloody Mary. And taking a fucking ride on the bike or the Corvette down A1A for 5.5 hours till they get to their destination. The whole time along the way, they're stopping off and having a drink. By the time they get to at every one of those places that they stopped to get a drink, there was somebody playing music, whether it was a guy playing acoustic or a girl singing tracks or, you know, whatever. And that's what drives Florida.
Yeah, it certainly does.
You know.
And the other thing I saw is, like, you know, just getting back to what you were saying before, is I see a lot of the bands, they get like cock diesel about themselves. And then they start to think that they know best.
Right.
You know, and then you can't talk to them anymore. And then they go, well, then I don't need you. And then they'll badmouth somebody and go, but then you know what? They always come back. Yeah,
because you say to yourself, I'm going to work harder to prove that guy wrong. And then they go, oh, okay, let me go find out how he did whatever it is. And you're like, yeah, well, you know, how did my band get 13,000 fans? Because I fucking worked at it.
And that's one of the things I gotta say. Like, he's been a great mentor to me, and I'm going to sing his praises only because he's been great to us.
I gotta ask him if he was Omnipop, if he was in.
I think so.
If his band was Omnipop.
But he's just, you know, just like you said, you know, he said to me, he goes, don't feed into the negative. He goes, just let what you do speak for it. He goes, be better than that. You know, you don't need to stoop down to that level. And I go, we're grown men. I'm done with that. You know, those days when I was 16, okay, fine. That's what we did. But, you know, I'm all about, I want to see everybody succeed. You know, there's room for all of us.
I do too. I don't have patience for the same mistakes over and over.
Exactly.
And that's where I fall into this trap of, I see.
But instead,
I don't. I'm a typical German, Irish, Italian, fucking Long Islander, and I don't know how to speak. My father told me it. I got in trouble in the school my entire fucking life for. Actually, my wife tells me it's not what you say; it's how you say it. And because I don't have a filter, and I don't know how to express myself, because to me, it all comes natural. Where, like, I've had my kids have asked me to teach them how to play guitar, and I can't do it because I don't have the patience, because it comes natural to me.
Same thing. My son was the same way. You know, he actually can play drums, but he finally came up to me. He's like, "Does it bother you if I don't play?" I said, "No, that's your thing." And I told him, I said, "I can't teach you because I don't have the patience. First of all, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm self-taught. I watch and I go, I can do that, and then I do it. That's what I do.
I slow it down. I listen
to
things.
That's exactly. When me and Kevin, because Kevin was always like, because he was in Big Hair Days with me as well. He's like, Jay, you know, we play covers horrible. I said, slow it down. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, just slow it down. Take it piece by piece. I bet you're going to get it. And he was like, holy shit, you're right.
It's so funny that you say that, because last night, I've been dying to do Dirty Honey for 3 years, right? And it's not Shovelhed material, really, because it's more Zeppelin-y-ish. So now they're really, really, really popular. And so I resent it to them last night, and I was like, let's learn this. I want to do this. And fuck, I'm so stoned, I don't remember where I was going with this. Music right now is good. And
It
it's going to
is.
change. Where were we just talking about? That I just blanked out like that. That I got into Dirty Honey.
About slowing things down.
Oh, yeah. Well, so I took it. I'm like, let me learn this last night.
Mm-hmm.
And I took it by phrase. And I couldn't believe how simple the songwriting was for a song that in my... About that, we lost our connection and cut off at about an hour. But I don't want to not have Jay be able to talk about Human Clay and the gigs that they got coming up, because I swear to God, every time I open up Facebook, there's like 3 more fucking gigs on there. So Rich is at Maximum is definitely doing the work. And in Florida, there's only a couple of agents that actually deal with any of the tributes or the booking agents. So if you're at any specific topper level, you're going to run into Maximum Bands or Tribute Bands LLC or Karen Lazar, Laser or whatever. I always say Lazar because I don't want to say Laser, but I know it's Karen Laser.
Yeah.
She's a sweetheart to deal with. Mm-hmm. And so what are your dates?
So Friday night we'll be at Suck Bang Blow in Myrtle Beach. We're doing Friday night. We're actually playing after Jackal.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they're playing outside and we're closing the night out in the inside.
Okay.
So it's going to be, we're excited about it. We're really psyched. Then we come back home, and then the next Friday on the 23rd, we're at Tin Roof in Icon Park. Then we'll be down at Buddha Live.
I haven't been there yet.
Me neither.
I'm curious to see it.
Yeah. So we're down there on the first Friday in June. Yeah, so we're about 7 dates in a row with only 1 week off. We just secured the 13th of June at Main Street Station.
Beautiful. I love Phaedra.
Yeah,
and I'm so glad that it reopened.
Yeah,
it's been. I just spoke to her a day before yesterday, and it's like it's the destination.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's a free event, so just come down and enjoy yourself. We're gonna put on a great show. We're gonna play over 2 hours.
2 hours?
Yeah, nice. we're gonna take a little bit of a break. We're gonna spread it out. So we're gonna play 2 separate sets. We're actually gonna do open. We are able to do 1 set with like the harder songs, and then we're gonna come back and do a second set that's gonna be like all the bigger hits.
Oh, okay.
So that's how we're gonna do it. So it's a full night of entertainment there.
See, Florida, in any situation, I don't give a shit what the musical situation is. The very first 40 minutes of any musical situation,
you gotta grab them.
Yeah, but it's people filtering in still.
Yep.
Like you could say 7 o'clock start time, and they don't get there till 8. So it's you gotta. I'm glad you structured it that way.
Yeah. So like the second set, like we'll have the hits like Arms Wide Open, Higher, My Sacrifice, all that stuff. We'll probably have that in the second set, where those are the songs that even just a common person that's not a huge Creed fan has heard it or seen the video of it.
Right.
So it'll be a little bit more entertaining in that one. First set will be more geared towards like Creed fans that know a lot of the stuff that they play live.
How any of these venues have the LCDs behind you?
There's only a couple.
Yeah, I'm starting to love that so much.
Yeah, and my bass player Randy, he's an IT guy.
Yeah.
He designs our websites, does all our flyers. He's got all the stuff for the TVs.
Yeah.
When we did our first show, we had it. That was when we had a screen in front of us, and he did this whole thing with our name and all these things that came up, and it correlated with our intro tape.
Where's he from?
He's actually from Illinois.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so...
But as one of those guys that has...
Phenomenal job. We give him everything, and he comes out with these great flyers and everything. He takes our pictures and puts us in these little scenarios and everything. So he's really great at it. So like I said, we all have a job in the band, and everybody does something. So you can check us out on Facebook and Instagram. We're on there. All our dates are up there. We'll be playing also the 21st in the Largo Event Center. We just got that confirmed. We're just waiting for the ticket link so we can put that up.
Sweet.
Yeah. So and then we got stuff in September, and there's a lot of stuff being worked on for July and August right now.
Yeah. Right now, see, I just started getting my calls for 2026.
Yeah.
So they're starting to fill up next year.
Yep.
And I had a couple of venues I'm booked already through to 27.
Yeah.
And then now I'm starting to get the rest of them. And this is happening every year, earlier and earlier, every single year.
That's what Rich was telling me. So
yeah.
and like I said, Rich and his team, they're so supportive of us. all the agents. There's Rich, there's Christy, there's Chris, there's there's also Jonathan, and there's Frank.
So if you are A-level, and I'm going to tell you to be fucking really, I'm going to sound negative, but if you really take the time to critique yourself, and you know that you've got what it takes to be heads above the rest, that's when you reach out to an agent like Maximum Bands. Yeah. That's when you reach out to Brad at Tribute Bands, or Karen. You don't do it until you have put the work in.
Yeah. Until
you have a product to sell.
It's the biggest thing.
Because all you're really doing at that point is flooding that agent's email with things that they don't have time to deal with, and you're going to frustrate yourself, and then frustrate the agent to the point where they don't ever want to work with you.
No, you gotta, you gotta have you gotta have an EPK. You gotta have a great promo video is key. That's the biggest thing.
Good following.
Yep.
Good tribute wise, it is a different animal. Because you do want to build a following, but you're kind of geared towards
a specific audience.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, So, but at the same time, if you're a quality tribute, like take Completely Unchained as your that's my blueprint example of the greatest there is.
Great example.
Great example. He puts money into his advertising,
and it's like going to see Van Halen.
It is, it's another guy in his 50s that's ripped like a fucking motherfucker. He's 60 actually.
And but you got to have that you got to have that product, and you have to have that mindset, because otherwise you're just covering that band.
Yeah,
you want to be able to tribute the band and pay tribute to them. And I'm going to say...
especially if you're going to expect tribute band money.
Yep, exactly. And you've got to also be humble, and you've got to be willing to listen and learn. You know, because if for us, I always say, I'm never going to be complacent, because the moment we get complacent, then we might as well stop.
Yeah.
I always respect. I always read everything you put out there. I respect your opinions, because you're telling it like it is.
Yeah.
I'm telling
it like it is for me.
Yeah, and take it or leave it. But you know what? You've had success, and your success. Why not share it with everybody?
That's it.
That's what you're doing.
Try it for a little while.
Yeah, and if it doesn't work for you, that's fine.
Yeah.
But you know what? Let everybody listen to everybody. Give everybody an out. They're only trying to help you to get to the next level.
Yeah.
And if you're too stuck in your own way, then you're not going to get there.
Absolutely.
We
got to wrap this up. I got to go pick up my wife.
Well, I appreciate it.
We're a one-car family. I want you guys to go check out Human Clay. I know that they're playing some amazing venues, including venues that we play at, like Twisted Fork and OCC. So make sure that you get yourselves a ticket. If you're in the Shovelhed area, which is a pretty big area of Florida, I want you guys to go check these out, because they are... If you enjoy Shovelhed and the amount of work and energy that we put into a Shovelhed show, you're going to love tribute bands that come from the same area makeup that I do. So go check out Human Clay, and we will see you guys later.
Thanks again, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.